Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. New to the show, very well known in the industry, but first time on. Vanessa Hung is with me today. How are you doing, Vanessa? You good?
Hi, Danny. Good, and you?
Yes, all good. Do you want to do a little introduction to the Seller Sessions audience? Let them know who you are.
Sure. So thank you so much for having me. And my name is Vanessa Hung. Danny already said that I'm based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I have an agency. And what we do is solve problems for Amazon sellers. So I am a problem solver that is passionate of helping sellers to figure out what are the things that happen in their account, because I believe that the management side of this business is very underrated. Many of us, or many sellers, focus on uh, finding the right product, which is important. I'm not saying that it's not, but it is. The main focus is like, oh, I need to have the product, and then I need to do the marketing and a lot of PPC and the branding and all that. But then when it comes to having issues in the account, that can basically completely close your whole business if you don't have it right. We don't understand anything that is happening.
Yeah,
So that's where I believe that when we are well-rounded sellers that understand the importance of all of the three areas, so product, marketing, and management,
yeah,
that's where the game can change. And I see that when you have it right, you can do a lot of damage
mm,
once you start understanding the back end of Amazon. So that's what we specialize on, uh, solving problems in the back end,
mm,
everything around catalog, inventory, and account health and performance.
yeah,
We help, and I'm just like in love of the back end, and
mm,
I spend a lot of time just experimenting, as we were talking before, like experimenting with things, what works, what doesn't work, like, and I'm playing around. So with my experiments, I'm able to come here and talk about things that are very unsexy for most people.
mm.
So I try to make it very simple and sexier, just because I believe it's important and it could make a significant difference in their business.
Yeah. So talking about that area is flat filed. I know that we've all had our pains with flat files because quite often, even when you're running a report to see while you're problem solving, even though your contact support, sometimes it takes the catalog team to resolve that problem, even though you've got the error codes to what you're working to. It can also be a back end issue as well, and often you have to send over your flat file to them to go through and work on themselves to repair. But interestingly, what we're going to be talking about, people know how to access flat files, etc. But today is going to be more about the index inside. Is that right?
Yeah, more about how we can use all the space possible
Yeah,
we can to
yeah,
put keywords that will
yeah,
help you index and will help you with search optimization.
yeah.
So that's basically what we're gonna be focusing on.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'll bring the slides up on the screen for those who are listening via the podcast. Obviously, we'll try and guide you as we follow along here. Other than that, obviously go to the Seller Sessions YouTube channel if you want to see the video demonstration of this. But Vanessa, I'll let you get underway here.
Perfect. So do you see my screen?
Yeah, everything's clear on the screen.
Okay, so I'm gonna be talking about the category listing report, and this is very quick, because I know we're gonna discuss other stuff, but this is where I'm gonna be basing my findings on why it is important. So we know the category listing report is that flat file that puts together all your attributes, price, quantity, and shipping information for your whole catalog. So this is the all the information of your whole catalog. Sometimes I see accounts where you can even see in a category listing report the SKUs that are not even in the account. So imagine that you have, I don't know, 100 active asins in Seller Central, but then when you download the category listing report, you could have 120. And those 20 are asins that you, or SKUs that you deleted in the past or sold at one point and then don't have anymore and you deleted it. So this takes all of the information, and sometimes even things that you don't have anymore. But so to have a clear vision, like this is all the information. And the great thing about it and how I got into experimenting with this is that it has all category attributes. So what I mean by that is that a flat file, as we know, it is designed for specific subcategories. So for example, if we are selling a, I don't know, a hot sauce, right? In the food and gourmet category, that is the subcategory, like the browsing node that we're gonna be indexed for and we're gonna be ranking on, like, you know, that subcategory. We are in that category in the food, groceries and food, but then we are in the subcategory of hot sauces. And that's perfect. For that specific line of products, Amazon developed an amount of attributes that are related to hot sauces. So probably you will see a column called there intensity, right? What's the intensity of this hot sauce? It's mild, it's medium, it's like whatever. That, for example, does not apply for a chocolate, right? A chocolate doesn't have an intensity of if it's mild or medium or very hot. It doesn't have. So that's why the system separates those stuff and separates in each subcategory. So what happened is when you get the category listing report, if you are selling in different subcategories or different kind of products, you will see everything all together. So that gives you an idea of like, okay, if a flat file as a structure can have all these attributes together, what happens if I use them? Even when they are not designed for my specific product. So I'm selling a hot sauce and I'm selling a chocolate. I'm gonna use, let's say, like, and this is how all of this started, right? Let's use that intensity attribute of like how hot is the sauce and input information in the chocolate. Okay, so imagine that we have a chocolate that is like 98% cocoa, right? That is very strong. It doesn't have sweet. It's not a milk chocolate. So then we can use the intensity of like, oh, this is a hard, right? Or more like hot. I don't know. I'm just making this up. Like this attribute, I don't know if it exists. I'm just putting an example. So I started there and I started seeing when I was uploading that category listing report in the backend, I started seeing changes in indexation and also start seeing things that were not meant to be in the front end of on a product detail page in the product detail page.
Can you break into that? What were you seeing, just to give some examples? Yeah. So you're making this experiment. What appeared on the product detail page?
Yeah. So that happened maybe in beginning of 2020. So I had a seller came to me. He's like, "Hey Vanessa, I have this line of products. They were tools, like construction tools, right? Yeah. So they needed to optimize something in the backend. But helping there, I saw that there was a column that it was only allowed, like it was only open for one of all the tools they had, right? Because it was in a different subcategory. Then I was like, okay, it was kind of, I think the attribute was called handle material. Like, you know, like in tools, it's like, what is the material where you take the tool, like the hammer or the screwer, like all of that. Sometimes you have things that are wood or sometimes are plastic or sometimes are metal. And when I saw that, I'm like, okay, but this applies to most of the ones that are there. So I go to the front end, like in a pro detail page, in the back end of Seller Central, sorry, and I try to find if that attribute is there. Because what happened is that the attributes that are allowed for your category, you will see them all in Seller Central. When you go to edit and you go in the back end of the battle info and all that, you see there what is allowed for that specific product. But then handle material wasn't there. So I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Let me see what happens if I just add to the other ones, because technically they are the same line of products. So they were like handle was wood, right? It was I don't know, a hammer. It was a hammer. There were a bunch. So I put there wood, and then when I uploaded, everything was successful, perfect, amazing. But when I went to the product detail page on Amazon.com, now under the price, right, that we have a little chart called technical details, where sometimes we see dimensions, sometimes we see materials, ingredients, stuff like that. I saw that after 25 minutes or so, handle material was there, and it says wood. So that for me, that was just like, oh my God. Because I didn't have it in Seller Central, so I couldn't use this in the UI. And then it was open in the backend, but it was because I downloaded the category listing report, and I used that because they were like other subcategories that I borrowed that attribute and put it in a category that was not designed for it. But because they were so alike, it's showing the front end. So I'm like shaking there. I'm like, what is this? And how much more I can do with this. So I started like researching. Then it comes the part of like clicking and browsing through Amazon.com and seeing who has the best product detail page in my category, right? My subcategory. So, for example, I went then in the same line of products, tools, like in tools and improvements things. Then I went to a drill set. So if you go and find out and try to look for a drill set, then you see drill sets that have a pro detail page with like 3 or 4 lines of information of like, oh, made in China, power is like 12 volts, and I don't know, 3 pieces inside, something. But then I go to other pro detail pages that are better, and I start seeing like 32 lines of information. And I'm like, this is what it's about. It's first finding those that the most important ones, and the ones that I seen that have the most impact in indexation, Danny, are the ones that are under the pricing. Mm-hmm. Under the pricing, we always have a certain amount of technical details. That cannot really be super long. Like that, it is impossible to have 30, because once you pass a certain amount, they will go down where the product information is, the pro details are. So that's where you start putting more stuff. And that's what I mean. So everything came from playing around with the category listing report. And I encourage you guys, if you download it today and you have other or similar sibling categories or sibling niches that are of your product, like you have different products and different stuff, you can start experimenting with that. But then I was like, okay, what if now we are not only tied to the category listing report, because sometimes people just sell one thing. They sell, I don't know, a ball for soccer ball, right? We only sell soccer balls, different colors, different sizes, different materials, but just soccer balls. So when they go and download their category listing report, they won't see anything from other categories, no other attribute. So now is what I'll be talking in my few next slides. So let me go to the next one.
Well, I'm just going to interject there because of what you said is quite pertinent. I said I'm working on some new A9 stuff. I'm just going to quote this here, which goes back to, which is going to be helpful in terms of catalog team. It says, and the information we have on the product side, there's a lot of structured data. So we have product descriptions, we have brand, we have price, we have prime product or not. The catalog team and the sellers do a lot of the hard work to get the structural information, which the web documents lack. So what you're talking about here in terms of pertaining to ranking and getting extra space in terms of keywords, finding little discoveries like this is going to be very useful as you start to manipulate the flat files.
Exactly. And the other thing is that technically the categories are designed for specific attributes. But because the flat files are customizable, and this is something that we need to start understanding. This is important. I believe this is the biggest catalog hack, is that flat files are customizable and the system cannot know if we're right or wrong. They just have a code. It's like, oh, this is this prototype is a hot sauce, or this is a chocolate, and from then we take all the information they put. So this is like start opening the mind of like, you can do this, and it can happen three things. The first one is that you use something, that my example of the hot sauce and the intensity in a chocolate, and it can happen that it doesn't do anything at all. It's not shown anywhere, and none of the information that you put there help you ranking, and that's the worst thing. But I seen that this happens when the sibling or familiar categories are very far. Like if I use like a hot sauce and a chocolate, that's very far in like things I can use for chocolate. I can use candy. I can just use like gummies, or I can use, I don't know, like ice cream, stuff like that. Well, we don't sell ice cream on Amazon. Whatever. But then that doesn't work at all. And nothing happened. You try. That's all good. Second option is that it's giving you the space in the back end, but you don't see it in the front end. So that means that you put a keyword that now you're indexing for, that you were not indexing before, or you are indexing better and ranking better for that keyword, but it is not shown in the front end. And probably these are the most powerful, in my opinion, the most powerful attributes. The ones that you can input the information that stick to the async, but are not shown in the front end. Because now there, you can put whatever that doesn't need to be, user-friendly or SEO-friendly, because if you start putting a bunch of keywords in something that is shown in the front end, that'll probably be confusing or, hard to see for a customer. And the third option is that it is both shown or have importance in the backend, and then also it's shown in the front end. So this will help you to convert more customers technically, because now they have more information, and also that information is helping you to be indexing, ranking, and help you with filters. And this is very important too. Now Amazon, in the left side of .com, when you, all the marketplaces, when you go to the left side, you can start seeing for products, you can start seeing different filters. So for example, in the hot sauce, you can filter a hot sauce, and you can say like, well, I want a hot sauce that is mild and not super hot. So now you can click there and filter but mild, and it will only show you, and this is extremely important, it will only show you the products that had in the backend that information. So it is huge.
Well, everything pertaining to ranking, like this is why flat files make a big impact in terms of structure, because when we think of search, not everyone thinks about it necessarily on a category level. So when you break down A9 on a product search, there's three main components: the query category score, the hunger score, and the in-category relevance score. So when you think of search like that, when we're talking attributes, when we're talking about what you're indexing for, what you don't index for, the whole tree structure of Amazon, search is based on category, based on relevance. So even if some of the attributes that you're listing in there, you may not see indexing on the front end, it doesn't mean it's not a carrier towards relevance and pointing in the right direction as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is the biggest thing. And now you say like, oh, that's amazing information. So what should I do next? Well, I'm not gonna cover. We already said that it's customizable. Oh, this is important, Danny. The part of Amazon Rewards contributors. This is a statement that I like a lot, because sometimes people say, oh, or sellers are used to do the bare minimum when it comes to catalog contribution. And I think like bare minimum in a way, like I'm putting just the information that they're asking me for, but you're not looking for what else I can input. And Amazon rewards you for that. Once you start putting more and more and more information that in the back end is good to their I don't know, like seller score, it's like, oh, this person is contributing a lot in their catalog, you put in a lot of information, and if you see, they obviously have a score for each pro detail page. If you keep scoring 10 out of 10 all the time, then you get better and more stuff in the backend. So it's like a powerful thing. I believe that you can also even win more contribution points when you are not like, this is just apply for people that don't have brand registry and all the stuff. But once you start putting information, sellers that don't have brand registry start getting more points in the contribution ladder, and what that means is more changes. It helps you to change stuff in the catalog faster, easier, and you override any other person that is coming. Mm-hmm. So the other thing, so part of the customization, and this is what we're talking about just how this can help to rank an index and blah blah blah, but also this helps to protect your listing from hijackers, like in a massive way. Why? Because if a hijacker knows this principle of customization and using attributes for sibling categories, think what they're gonna do next. They're gonna go to your listing, they're gonna use an attribute that is not there, right? It's not, you won't see it. So that's sometimes when people come to me and say like, oh, I don't know what is happening with my listing, I'm not indexing, or I'm restricted, but I don't see any keyword in my site in Seller Central. It's like, oh yeah, of course somebody put it in the backend. So if they do that, then you are unprotected, right? So when we start filling in the buckets of information, and buckets, I mean the cells or the attributes where are in a flat file. Once we fill that in, technically, in theory, nobody else, unless they have a higher contribution, right, can override us. And how we can prevent that? Being always the biggest contributor of our listing. So nobody comes in and override us unless we're fighting with Amazon itself, like an internal team that is changing some stuff for us, or maybe a vendor. But that's less.
Well, on the vendor side,
like
on the vendor side, you're going to lose because you've got catalog contributions. Once it's in vendor, you have to 100%. Ask them to release the catalog contributions in order to get control back of your listing. But going back to your point, this is the point system you were talking about.
Let me here. This is the point system. So remember we were talking before, you were saying like, I met somebody and they say we are in a good track for this information.
Yeah, the guy from the
That's what happened.
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah. that happened to me with this pyramid. I
Cool.
put out this pyramid long time ago, and saying like, hey guys, this is how contribution rights work, and this is how you. This is why most people, when have catalog issues, they don't understand what's happening, what's coming from. The first thing you need to understand, if whatever you're trying to change, you are the highest contributor for that thing. So then I met a ex sellers, ex Amazon person that work in the catalog, and they're like, "You are so right with the pyramid, but then I'm gonna give you a quick, like, that was a present, and they gave me the points. So if you see here, the pyramid works from 0 to 100, and I know how much each team worth. So what you're saying is right. Like the pink or red, I don't know the color, that you're seeing here, that's the vendor. Vendor is on top of anybody else in Seller Central. They will always override you. Always. It doesn't matter what happened. But then the retail team is the one that can override the vendor. And on top of that, we have 3 internal teams, and being in the top is the FC. So the fulfillment center, it has the highest amount of points with 99, and they only are able to change information in dimensions. That's why when you send something to FBA and you have something wrong in your dimensions, you always need to ask for qubit scan, because you cannot change the dimensions of your product. The FC have the contributions. You will never be able to
Yeah.
override them. But yeah.
Cool. Is there anything else we want to cover before we go?
Yeah, well, one thing.
Go on,
So
let's do it.
a quick tip. So saying like, oh, that's amazing information, Vanessa, but I only sell one type of product. How can I find the attributes that you're talking about?
Yeah.
So if you see my screen, I'm in the dashboard called Add a Product via Upload. And that you will find it when you click inventory and then you click Add a Product via Upload. The first tab, it's called Download an Inventory File. When you are in that tab, in the first step, you can search. You have a search bar, right? And you can search a keyword, and you will use that search tool and input the main keyword, the most general keyword for your product. If you're selling chocolate, for example, you will only put chocolate. You are not putting chocolate bar or chocolate candy or chocolate powder. No, it's just chocolate. Then it will come up like a huge list. Sometimes it's too big and we need to filter, but we will have a huge list of all the applicable subcategories for that specific keyword. And you can download that. You can download all of them all together. You don't even need to download one by one. It's just like you select all of the ones that you want and you download that. Now you have a template, a category template with all these categories, with all these attributes that you can start building your listing on. The main caveat here, it is very important, is that you only use one product, item type keyword. So the item type keyword is related to the subcategory. So at the end, you will need to put this ASIN in a subcategory because the system needs to know where this is going to. But you can input whatever attribute that is like extremely related or not to your thing based on this, what I call sibling categories, because sibling or familiar categories, they are something alike. And once you have there, that's the first step. You can even test like little by little and see like changing stuff, putting information, uploading, seeing what happened. And so my recommendation is that whatever you put new, that is a new keyword, and now I'm using this to index in Spanish. So I use some space that we didn't have before to put Spanish keyword and see how they index. Make sure you get that that relation Like, you know, you need to, okay, if you put this keyword, let me see how I'm ranking, because that's the only way you will be able to see if this is successful or not. And also it will tell you in what type of attribute is each. So if you put a keyword in one and that didn't do anything at all, so you know that attribute is completely out of question. uh, but then if you put a keyword in an attribute that is not showing in the front end, but now you're indexing, you know that is a valuable attribute. So you save that, even though it's not for your subcategory. And obviously, the more obvious one is the one that is shown in the front end, and you don't really need to track that, because once you have it, you're already ranking for it. And remember that this is not only for search terms, this is also for filters. So go to Amazon.com and search your type of product and see what they have in the left side. What are the filters that you can filter on that search? And so now there you will see start that give you a clue on what are the attributes that you need to start looking in a file. But yeah,
Excellent.
that's basically it. Now then you upload it and you start like playing around.
Cool. Well, look, thank you for joining us today. As I said, first time on the show. I'd love to get you back sometime in the future when we've got some more discoveries to cover. I'll see you in 6 weeks or so at the $1 Billion Seller Summit. So
Yes.
be good to see you over there. What's the best way that people can reach you?
Sure. So email is vanessa@fulltimeamazon.com. The website of the agency is onlinesalessolutions.com, and very big and like generating a lot of content on LinkedIn. So you can find me as Vanessa Hung. And if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us today, guys. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget, Sharon will be back in the chair tomorrow and Isabella on Monday. Take care of yourself and your family. Much love.